My name's Markham Hawkins. I am a partner and senior wealth advisor here at Quotient Wealth Partners. And today I want to spend just a few minutes going over the typical Chevron severance plan, how it works, and then really walking through what you need to think about to know whether or not taking the severance is right for you. So before I get started, if there's anything I say today that piques your interest, or if you'd like to sit down with one of our advisors and walk through a no cost, no obligation financial plan, in the description field below the video, you'll see a link. If you click on that link and put in your information, myself or one of our other Chevron advisors will reach out to you and answer any of the questions that you might have. So let's go ahead and jump in. So anytime that you're offered a severance package at Chevron, there's really four topics that you want to make sure that you know. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the payment itself, how it works, and how that fits into your life. Then we're going to go through a couple of your benefits. So we're going to talk about your 401k plan, some decisions you may have to make there. We're going to talk about your pension plan and what you want to think about as you're navigating that pension. We're going to go into your healthcare options and talk about what you're looking at there and how it works. And then probably the most important thing is we're going to finish with, does taking this severance fit your financial plan? And does it make sense for you and your family? So let's hop into that first one. So at Chevron, when you take a severance, generally it's pretty straightforward. So most of the time it's 2, sometimes 3 weeks per year that you've been there of pay, and it's paid out in a lump sum, and it's maxed at 1 year's annual salary. So to give you an example, let's say that I worked at Chevron. I worked there for 30 years and I make about $200,000 a year. Very likely, if I were to take this severance, my severance would be that $200,000 a year of annual income. Now, it's really important to know that generally Chevron pays severances as a lump sum. So, why is that important? So, the current rumors after the town hall of what's happening with the newest Chevron severance is that there's going to be two waves of people that can take it. The first wave is going to be going out sometime maybe in that April to May timeframe. And those are going to be Chevron employees that raise their hand and say, I was retiring anyway. This really works for me. Then you have the second wave, which is going to be leaving later in the year. It's been rumored that maybe that's sometime around July or August. Now, the reason that this is important is because if you're leaving at either one of those waves, then you're going to have some income that you expected to make this year. Plus, you could have up to another year's salary. So, one of the first things that you want to do is you want to go into your 401k plan at Fidelity and see how you set it up. Because if you went in this year thinking it was just going to be a normal year of work, you might be somebody that's doing Roth contributions, that's doing after tax contributions. And in actuality, if now you're going to be taking a severance and there's a good chance you're going to have a lot more income coming in this year than you expected, then you probably want to focus on the tax deferral side of the 401k. And then maybe you can go back to doing Roth conversions after you're off payroll when your income's lower, if that fits your overall financial plan. So the first thing that I would do if I decided, hey, I think I'm going to take this severance, is I would go into my 401k plan, I would sit down with my advisor, and I would say, how do I make this represent this change in my life that I wasn't expecting this year? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is your pension plan. Because most people at Chevron that are vested in this pension are going to have two options. You can take an annuity payment for your pension, or you can take a lump sum. So let's talk a little bit about each one of these and how it can affect what your financial plan is going to look like. Because what is an annuity pension? An annuity pension is a guaranteed payment from the company while it's in business for you working there. So, for example, go back to me working at Chevron for 30 years. If I'm someone who worked at Chevron for 30 years and I take the annuity pension, What they say is, Markham, thanks for working here. We're going to pay you this amount of money every single month for the rest of your life as long as we're in business. Then the other option that I have is I can actually lower that payment and add my spouse as a beneficiary amount. So there are some beneficiary options there. Now, what's the great thing about an annuity? The great thing about an annuity is it's very predictable and you know you have that money coming in at the beginning of every month. What's the tough thing about an annuity? Well, hopefully, when you're planning for your retirement, you're trying to plan for a 25 to 30-year retirement. So if you take this stagnant monthly payment, there is no cost of living adjustment. So the general rule is based on where inflation is running now, about every 15 years, your money's worth about half as much. So what that means is that if you take an annuity over here, something else in your investments needs to be built to fight inflation over time. So maybe you're having to take more risk somewhere else. So let's talk about the lump sum. Lump sum just means that I worked for Chevron for 30 years. I want to take a lump sum. So what they say is, Markham, thank you for working here. Here is a lump sum of assets that you can roll over into your investments. What's the great thing about a lump sum? It's control. I have control. It is now my money. So when I retire, I can move that money from the company over into my IRA account, which is going to defer those taxes until I take it out and spend it. Now, a lot of Chevron people have the restoration plan as well. I'm not going to talk about that today. We have another video coming out for people with that plan, so pay attention and we'll walk you through that in the next video. I'm just talking about the qualified lump sum amount. So I have control. I can move that over into an IRA. I can invest it. I can spend it. I can really do anything I want. And that's generational wealth. I can pass it to my spouse, to my kids, to my grandkids, wherever I want that money to go. What's the drawback of a lump sum? It's actually the same thing. It's control, right? If I do something wrong, if I'm not diversified, if I spend too much, if my financial plan is not correct, I could run out of money. And so it's important if you're taking the lump sum to have a really solid financial plan built so you have that control and you know it's going toward a goal. Now, I would say with my Chevron clients, over the last 10 years, probably about 80% have taken the lump sum. So I want to talk a little bit about how it's calculated because I think this is really important because lump sum pensions have what's called an interest rate factor. And I'm speaking kind of directly to the pre 2008 employees at Chevron. And so if you're someone that's thinking about taking a lump sum, you need to understand how interest rates affect your pension. And the way that I'm going to put it is pretty simple. So if interest rates are low, then generally your lump sum is going to be higher. Why? Because if rates are low, the lump sum formula assumes you can make less money on the open market, so the payment is actually a little bit higher. If interest rates are high, your lump sum payment can go down and can be lower. Why? Because if interest rates are higher, that formula assumes you can make more money on the open market. So just because you're taking this severance doesn't mean you necessarily want to commence your lump sum pension the month after you retire. I think it needs to be a little more scientific than that because how these interest rates work is at Chevron, there's a blended rate. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm retiring in December of 2024. So I'm leaving at the end of last year. I want to take a lump sum at Chevron. How is that interest rate calculated? Well, they use 3 months of blended rates, 3 months prior to my retirement. So if I'm leaving in December, what that means is my lump sum is actually being calculated based on the July, August, and September rates. Now, look at the October rate. The October rate is 4.42. The July rate is 4.92. So if I wait a month when those rates average out, that lump sum should theoretically be a little bit higher. So there's other things you have to factor in. If you're under 60, there's very likely still some growth inside of your lump sum. If you're over 60, your lump sum could actually be depleted. There's also opportunity cost for investing this money. So the point of this is before you just decide, hey, I'm commencing my pension and taking this lump sum, make sure you sit down with your advisor, you go through these interest rates, and you really understand how it works and when you should take this. So, the next step that I want to talk about in whether or not you should take this severance from Chevron is how do the healthcare options work? Because, really, to summarize it, you have three different options. You have Cobra. What is Cobra? Well, Cobra means you retire, you stay on the company plan, but it comes 100% out of pocket to stay on that. So it's good insurance, but it can be very expensive. A lot of clients do that if maybe they don't want to restart a deductible, so they could go onto Cobra and then do some other things after. But it can be expensive, but it is an option you have. It's a limited amount of time, it's not forever. The next option, which is going to be the main one for people that have been at Chevron for a number of years, and that's going to be going on the Chevron retiree health coverage. In the next slide, we're going to walk through a little bit about how that works to give you an idea. The other option is to waive both. So maybe you have a spouse that's still working. Maybe you have an outside plan that works for you, or maybe you're going on to Medicare somewhere else. So it's important to know before you take this severance which one of these plans work for you. So sit down with your advisor and go through these. Now, I do want to talk about the Chevron retiree health coverage. So you have to have a few things in order to be eligible for this. The first one is you have to be over 50. The second one is you need 10 years or more of service. The third is your last rehire date has to have been at least 5 years ago. And then you're not a member of a union, because if you are, you likely have other healthcare options. Now, if you look at the graph on this slide, I want you to focus on the 90-point scale, because generally when we see these severance offers, almost everybody's on the 90-point scale. But if you look at the far left, you have age plus years of service. So if you're someone that's fairly young or hasn't been there a while and you only have 60, then you'll see on the 90-point scale it says 50%. What that means is that Chevron will pay 50% of your healthcare benefit. Now, if you keep going down, you see with every 5 points, it goes up about 5%. Once you get to 90, so your age and years of service equals 90, Chevron pays about 100%. So it's important to know how this works, but it's hard to know exactly what you're going to be paying until you go into the Benefits Connect site, you log in, and you figure this out. But it is important as you're planning to decide whether or not this severance makes sense for me, to know which medical path that you're going to take, so we can build that into your overall financial plan. Now, the fourth thing I want to talk about, and the final thing, and to me, probably the most important, is does taking this severance fit your financial plan? Right? Because when big severances like this happen, it's exciting. You're thinking, I can get a free year's salary, I can do this, I can do that. And that's great if it fits your overall financial plan. So sit down with your advisor. If you don't have an advisor, click on that link below in the description page, because we'll do this for you for free. No cost or no obligation. We'll walk you through a full financial plan. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at where you are today. What is your spending? What is your savings? And what are your goals, more importantly? And we'll walk you through what we call our retirement readiness process, which is going to show you, number one, let's go through a full financial plan and let's just see if the severance makes sense for you. Number two, what is it you want to do? How are you going to manage those investments? What type of risk do you have to take? And then number three, what do you need to be doing on your taxes to prepare you to go into retirement? And then what things can you do in retirement in order to make it very productive and to meet as many goals as you can? Again, my name is Markham Hawkins. I am a partner and senior wealth advisor here at Quotient Wealth Partners. It was good talking to you today. And if you have any questions, please go to that description link, click on that, and myself or one of our advisors will be in touch. Thanks and have a good day.